Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. In today's session and conversation, I would like to talk to you regarding how you can start the process of getting yourself into the right state of desire in order to attract a better life for yourself and, more importantly, a life that is void of depression, anxiety, worry, doubt, and fear. If you remember my conversations from some sessions prior, I started by explaining that human beings, we've been gifted with a mind. For ease of understanding, we separate the mind into two halves, conscious, subconscious. On the conscious state, and in our conscious mind, we have what we call sensory faculties, senses. See, sight, the ability to see, or what we call sight, the ability to hear, and hear sounds, the ability to smell, the ability to touch and taste. And therefore, our senses are the gate through which we interact with the world around us. We collect inputs, and when the inputs come into our conscious mind, we process the information, provided we also understand what we have to the side of our sensory faculties, which is our intellectual faculties. Most of us are not really taught how to use our sensory faculties because, for some reason, trial and error really works. We have 18 years to practice before we leave mom and dad. We're not operating on instincts. But what we do not lack, what we lack and what we're not taught is how to use our intellectual faculties, imagination, memory, perception, will, intuition, and focus. And this is where you have a separation between people who suffer in life and those who actually enjoy life. Life is supposed to be lived, but it requires a willing decision. Now, one of our intellectual faculties is reason, the ability to think. It's the hardest job we are capable of as human beings, which is why most people do not do it. Critical thinking is a nightmare for most people because we haven't been taught how to think. Now, interestingly, I'm going to say something that perhaps goes against what I believe to be perhaps a moral duty of people, which is to be logical and to understand how to reason. Imagination is the greatest of all our intellectual faculties. Effectively, it's the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. Now, with your imagination, you can do wonders. You also need to be taught how to use your imagination. Now, I made reference to the fact that depression is a resonance, is a frequency, is an energy state, is a vibration, and you have to know how to move away from that frequency. Otherwise, you stay stuck when you get to that frequency. And one of the ways is through your thoughts, through your feelings, and through your actions. And these create a habit. Those habits form what we call paradigms. You see, what you do daily determines who you become permanently. The secret to your future can be found in what you're doing every day. I do not need to see what you do over a week or a month. I just need to be observant of what you do daily, because who you are is a reflection of what you are doing daily. And by doing, I'm not talking about just action. I'm talking about your resonance, the vibration you are in, the feelings you're expressing and impressing upon yourself, and the thoughts. Now, the key question, therefore, is if the mechanism for activating desire to ensure you're choosing the right desires starts with yourself and your mind, you have to know how to use it. We start with thoughts. And most people say, well, I don't really know how to choose the right thoughts. Well, in today's session, my focus is simply to give you something that perhaps could be practical. Absent change, most of us will default back into a state of worry and anxiety because everything around us in this universe, especially in the West, seems to point towards the negative. So if we don't stand guard at the gate of our mind, we allow information to come through, and those information become our predominant thoughts. It's part of the reason why people can, for no reason, healthy people, start to listen to the news and to other people's third voices, and suddenly they realize that they're moving backwards. Their life is changing, primarily because they're listening to voices from outside, from without, that are not voices of good, but are voices of fear and not faith. And one of the key things to understand is you have to stand guard. And you either have to create your thoughts, the ones you want, or you have to listen to the right thoughts that are inconsistent with your goals, your outcomes, and the future you want. We'll start as follows. The way you move and change your energy state or your vibration is by your thoughts. Very fundamental, very basic. You say how? Well, think about this. I'm going to ask you a question. Now, forgive me if perhaps in your case, this does not necessarily apply to you, but I will use 2 or 3 examples to make a point. First question. As you listen to me, without looking around you, can you tell me the color of your room? Your lounge or your bedroom? Your kitchen or your office? The color. That's the first question. Second question is, who's your mother? Or who's your father? Or who's your sister? Or who's your brother? Third question, what color is your car? What color is your bike, motorbike or bicycle, or even your skateboard? Now these questions, I would hope that as you listened to these questions, 1 or 2 things or 3 things would have happened depending on how much interest you had in the other questions. Is as soon as I talked about your room or the space you're in, your office, your kitchen, you're not thinking about colors, W-H-I-T-E, W or Y-E-L-L-O-W. The picture of your kitchen or your room comes to the screen of your mind. The picture of your mother, your father, your brother comes to the screen of your mind. The picture of your car comes to the screen of your mind. Because when we think, we tend to think primarily, for most people, in pictures. Now, some of us think in words because some of us are very intellectual. I don't put myself in this category, but some of us as a collective are intellectual. So we can see words written out, and sometimes we can see those words in different languages. But most of us tend to think from a default-based perspective in pictures. And therefore, one of the ways to choose and control your thoughts is to choose the pictures you allow to come into the screen of your mind. Those pictures can be created in 2 ways. From words, we call word pictures. So if you say, I want to be rich, that is a word picture, but it has no face. One way to actually assign a stronger picture to that would be to assign something that subconsciously you relate to. A car, a house, a bank statement, and all of these start to convert your word picture into an image picture. But you have to think in pictures, and you start in however you can, words or pictures. Now, once you have a picture, that picture has to be consistent with the goal you have in mind, the true north that you're trying to reach, the place you're trying to get to, your destination. And if there is congruency and consistency between both of them, then it becomes a working product that you can use. If there is a discrepancy, you have to correct it. You either have to raise your resonance or the thoughts to match where you want to get to, or you have to alter the destination. Now, the point I'm making of all of this is to change your frequency. Depression is a frequency. If you are depressed, you are in a frequency. You are at a vibration that is in alignment with the state of depression. Death is a frequency, it's a vibration. Happiness is a frequency, it's a vibration. Being sad, mad, glad, disgusted, excited, joyful, these are all frequencies. To go from one frequency to the next, you have to know where you are. So the first thing is to see things as they are. Say, well, I don't feel happy. I'm not happy with my results. Second, where do I want to get to? Third, how do I start moving or start moving? And the thought process is how you start moving. But in order to move from A to B with intention and purpose, you have to choose the destination. And so the destination is simply your goals in pictures or in words. So we start as follows. Your life is simply a product of what you've accepted for yourself. explicitly or implicitly. In order to change your life, you're going to have to perform. And this is where the whole stage performance comes into play. Decide what you want. Write the script of what you want. Read it. Reread it. And reread it. Memorize the script. Internalize the script. Act the script. And most importantly, believe the script. That sequence is without error and without fail. You do it long enough, spaced repetition, you imprint that on the mind with belief and desire, you activate the law of attraction. And by doing that, firstly, you move into the resonance with what you want. You activate the law of attraction through the law of expectation. And by acceptance, the law of attraction draws what you want into your life, or moves you away from what you do not want and takes you to where you should be. It's really that simple. Write a script. Write your goals down. Get a script, whatever the script might be. Get a piece of paper, get a pen, sit down and write who you want to be. And in this particular instance, let's just simply say, you don't even want to say, I don't want to be someone who's depressed. No, you want to be happy, joyful, free person who is living life to the fullest. Write it down. Read it. Now, when you write it down initially, you have to write in the present tense because there is no time or distance with regard to this intelligence we work with. There is just now. Now. So you have to say things such as, I am. Whatever you put after I am, you become, especially if you believe it and if you're intense with it. And so you read it. And initially when you read it, what you find is that it doesn't sound right because you're doing something that you've been taught not to, which is don't tell a lie. But as in this instance, I'm saying you're telling yourself a true lie, the truth of what you would like to become. And you reread it again. And then you memorize it so that you can, without looking or referring to the paper where you've written your goals, you can simply say, I can quote Shakespeare's line, and I can act whilst quoting the script at the same time. But I can not only quote and act, but I can perform, where I bring in style and drama and my personality into the experience. So you read it, first you write it, you read it, you reread it, you memorize it, you internalize it, you perform it, you internalize it again, you perform it, you internalize it again, and then eventually you will become it. It's really that simple. So to go from wherever you are, wherever state, emotional state you might be, you cannot move. Here's the key thing. Let me take a step back. The way the mind works, especially our conscious mind, we can't move, we can't stay void of a thought. We can either move towards a thought or away from a thought. And what I'm suggesting to you here is, if you are depressed or in resonance with the state called depression, then you are thinking in like manner. And therefore, if you say, well, I want to stop thinking about being depressed or being anxious or fearful, one of the things you realize is that your mind, it's like a snapback effect. It snaps back to the same thought. The only way you displace that thought is through the law of substitution. You bring in a new thought. So I can say to you, whatever you do in the next few seconds, do not think about this paper. Don't think about it. Forget there is the paper in front of you. And no matter how much I talk about this paper, your mind is drawn to the paper. But if I say, what about this phone? What do you think about this phone? Automatically, as soon as I presented this, your mind goes away and displaces and moves away from this paper and moves towards another thought. And so one of the best ways of moving away from a state of depression is simply choose a good thought, a thought on a higher frequency of peace, of joy, of gladness, prosperity, of success, of happiness, and internalize it, memorize it, live it and act it. And what you find is that you will be in resonance with that thought, and you will move away from the state of depression and you move towards a state of abundance. It is really, really that simple. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.